Okay, in Module B of States of Consciousness, we're going to talk about sleep and sleep disorders. Now, sleep is a curious thing. It's something that we do an awful lot of, but we don't really seem to know a lot about it. We certainly don't know everything that we dream. Many of you may say, oh no, I didn't dream anything at all last night, or oh yeah, I had a couple dreams, but I don't remember much about them. Or you may remember your dreams very vividly. It really depends on how you have processed that dream and whether you thought it was important to remember it, whether you keep a dream log. Some people do like to keep a dream log just because it tells them like a pattern of the things that are happening in their life. Because dreams serve a function, which we'll see in a little bit. Dreams help us to process our daily lives in some ways. And some of you may think, well, when I dream about being chased by a dragon, that has nothing to do with my daily life. Obviously, there's no dragons around, but it's not literal. It's more of a, what does that represent? What kinds of things might be happening in your life that make you feel as if you might be being chased by dragons, so to speak. So we're going to talk about this. We're also going to talk about some of the sleep disorders that some people experience. We're going to talk about the variations in sleep quality, because some people sleep really, really well, and some people suffer from chronic insomnia. And how do we deal with those periods where we have, slight insomnia, or where we seem to have a lot going on in our life, and yet when we need the most sleep, we need to sort of restore and give ourselves the energy to deal with, exams and deadlines at work or whatever the case may be. How is it that we are not getting that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk about some of the unusual things that people do while they're sleeping. Okay, so let's begin by looking at two different types of sleep, REM and non-REM. Now, this chart that I have posted here shows you the major differences between the two. For instance, REM sleep is when our eyes are processing. They are moving all the time. And it seems like we're processing something. If you were to watch a person who was in the throes of REM sleep, you'd be thinking, wow, his or her eyelids are moving a lot. I mean, what's happening there is that we have different brainwave activities that are happening. We are not calm during REM sleep. We are really having a lot of things going on in our body, in our mind. For instance, adrenaline is shooting through our system. Our blood pressure rises. Our heart and respiration rates increase. We tend to have fast, irregular brain activity. We have vivid dreams during this period of time. And interestingly enough, people who are awoken from REM sleep will tell you that they have had a dream most of the time. 80% of people who have been awoken say, yeah, I had this really vivid, crazy dream that was bizarre and scary, and often it is. The REM dreams tend to be very emotional in the sense of that scary feeling, that tension, that anxiety and violence that may occur. Non-REM, on the other hand, is more likely to be quieter. Oh, sorry. One thing I want to sort of focus on, I forgot to mention before, is that in the REM sleep, there's this feeling of paralysis. And you may have had this where you've had a dream that was really scary and emotional, and you felt like you couldn't move, you couldn't escape. And it's because your body and mind haven't connected yet. Your body's still in that paralysis of the large muscles, and so you really can't move very much until your mind kicks in and says, you have to move, you have to wake up, because this is so scary that you want to get your heart rate and your respiration down to a more slower, more normal pace. So what's the big difference between REM and non-REM? During non-REM sleep, we don't have this rapid eye movement. We have 4 different stages. They basically are, well, I'll outline them in the next slide because I have a graphic that shows a person in non-REM sleep as seen by a sleep laboratory and a EEG machine. Non-REM sleep is characterized more by the slow and regular heart rate. You know, you're not breathing heavy. You're not afraid. You're sort of got to that calm stage where you're sleeping well and you're relaxed and your brain activity is even lower. And the dreams that you have during this time may be much more thought-like. In other words, they may be, let's say you have some kind of challenge going on in your life. You go to sleep and you wake up the next day saying, I know what I'm going to do to deal with that problem I had with that friend who is being too nosy or being too distant or being not helpful or whatever the case may be. Those thought-like dreams that you may have had helped you to solve that problem that you have with this individual or these individuals, whatever the case may be. One of the things that sometimes non-REM sleep is referred to as quiet sleep because our body is relaxed and at a calmer, more peaceful state than is during the REM sleep. Let's talk a little bit about the sleep cycles that we go through in a typical evening. The first stage is that light sleep, and these 4 stages all sort of fall under the non-REM sleep. So we could add a 5th stage, and that would be REM sleep. But I really would want to just focus right now on the non-REM sleep. So the first stage is that light sleep. It just lasts a few minutes. It's where you feel you're still aware of your environment to a certain extent. You haven't really totally disengaged. You're trying to fall asleep, but maybe you're thinking about something that happened through the day, or maybe your partner's still awake and they may be, you know, shuffling around, brushing their teeth, or getting into bed and tossing and turning more, and you're sort of you're easily disturbed at that point because you haven't gotten into that deeper stage 2. Deeper stage 2 is where most of our sleep occurs. In this case, we're starting to feel that calm, that ability to shut the world out and just relax our mind, relax our body, and our breathing all seem to get slower, more regular. Stage 3 is when we are starting to get into that deepest sleep. And interestingly enough, a person who's woken from stage 3 or stage 4 may report having had a dream, but they may also report feeling disoriented. And think about this. I don't know if anybody here has ever had afternoon naps. I highly recommend them if you are not feeling well or if you are feeling you need to re-energize yourself. But the interesting thing about that, if you are suddenly woken during an afternoon nap, say by somebody coming back home or somebody slamming around dishes or cleaning the house or whatever the case may be, you may have this feeling of disorientation that lasts briefly, maybe less than a minute, but you don't know what time it is. You might think it's night when it's actually still afternoon, or you might think that it's early morning and you have to rush around and get yourself ready to go to work, school, etc. So it's because we are in that deep sleep, that shock to our system leads to that disorientation that we may feel and that lack of sense of what the time is, what we should be doing, how we should be behaving. That lasts, like I said, not very long, but can last a while. So let's look at EEG patterns that show what the difference is in terms of brain activity. Because all that EEG, you remember, may recall, can show is what's kind of brain activity is going on. It doesn't tell where it's happening, what's going on. It just shows the difference. But it does look at the brainwave activity, or how much we're thinking. So if you look at stage one and awake, they're very similar. There's a little bit more activity in stage one, but it's still, very similar to being awake. Whereas at stage 2, 3, and 4, things are getting very, very different in terms of how we deal with the sleep situation. So you'll also notice by looking at this chart that REM sleep has similar sleep spindles to being awake. And so our brain is working just as hard when we're in the REM sleep stage, or stage 5, if you will, as it is when we are awake during the day. It's processing information. It's gathering information. It shows that we have this active response to whatever it is whatever stimuli we may have while we are sleeping. And so that's the dream activity, for instance, and that processing of dreams that occurs during that particular time.